sent to Peter Marshall regarding the OCPC brief and any possible delay in the timing of when a ruling or a decision may be made if he knew of any. Figured I would get better traction from Peter as opposed to sending it to the OCPC, which I would respect I would probably not even get a response, if anything. So so I would take a motion to accept that, or the amended agenda. Yolanda moves. Kathy seconds. All those in favor? Carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interests? None noted. We have the minutes to the previous meeting.
Just one thing I noticed, paragraph 6 of the previous meeting's minutes. The second line says the OCPC portion of the brief has been delayed due to staff changes, but I believe that was the OPP portion was delayed, that had not yet been submitted to the OCPC.
That is correct.
I think possibly you could amend that.
Yep.
And under 11.1,
Yes.
I don't recall saying that I wouldn't put my name forward. It's kind of up in the air because I haven't heard from the ministry, and they extended me till December 31st, and I really haven't made a decision as to whether I put my name.
Yeah, I recall the conversation that you may or may not, depending on what response you get from the ministry. Yeah. And there was a conversation that you may just then put your name on for the representative.
Exactly.
Of the
so like
town. So
I
think maybe
we should
the conversation. Well, the conversation maybe should be may not as opposed to will not.
Yeah.
That might be more clear than.
Well, it's certainly going to depend on a lot what happens in the next few months, right?
Yes.
So I can't really say.
And I did want to make note. I did mention to Mandy tonight that there is the motion that states about the bills and accounts that was defeated. We're going to remove that motion completely from the minutes because that motion didn't actually happen. What the motion did happen was to defer the bills and accounts to the October meeting. So I've made that comment to Mandy. We're going to make that adjustment to the minutes if the board would see that be okay. Okay. So barring those adjustments to the minutes, is there an acceptance to those minutes with those changes? Kathy moves them and Yolanda seconds them. All those in favor? Carried. So business arising from the minutes. I did want to bring the board up to date on a couple of conversations that we had at the council table last night with regards to the representative basically filling Bill's position on the board. The council did move last night to start that process, get an advertisement out. And I said with the board's hope is that by the November meeting, we hope to have at least the list of candidates that have applied and that we could potentially have vet at the council table so that we could have a representative be at the November board meeting. I did very clearly make a very clear comment about the provincial appointees and the very low thought that I don't think the expedient nature of the provincial appointees is going to change. So it's even more important to have this representative because the police services board doesn't change even with disbandment. You still need a board. So the conversation needs to happen sooner rather than later. So they were receptive to that and made the comment that the staff would be asked to move on that process effective basically today. So the other mention of was with regards to what else did we talk about? If I can recall, it was just last night. I think most of it was regards to that and the provincial appointee discussion. That was the two conversations that, I told the board, or I told the council that, we go to zone 5 meetings and that seems to be the topic of conversation, agenda point 1, every meeting, every quarter. So I don't see that process changing. We have provincial appointees up till December, but until then, we could then be down to one more provincial appointee, and therefore our quorum becomes less, especially with the municipal election. I did mention that because we have 2 representatives on that are council members that are running for re-election. So we could be, the board could be really concerned with the transition and information. So I thought that they were important that they got that process going as soon as possible. Okay. And then the other part of the business was that letter that I'd sent to Peter. I sent it to him today, just verifying, asking that question that the board was concerned, only because much of our negotiations with the association has been based around staffing and safety, and we don't need any delays in the case where if there is delays, we need to make sure that the association is kept up to date about that. I will say to the board here, I did get a comment, or I did get an email from Dwayne mentioning that there is some dates that have been started to have conversations with the association with regards to benefits and pensions and that type of stuff.
I can elaborate on that if you want, Chair. The 23rd of October, so next week, next Tuesday, the OPP recruiting personnel are having a meeting with all of our members and just discuss the enrollment process and things like that with them. And then on the 22nd of November, they're having the Ontario Pension Fund and the OPPA are going to be meeting with them with regard to the pension rollovers and the benefits packages from the OPP Association.
So that's what's been going on at this point. We also did get mention from the municipality this week that the OCPC has requested that the board make a motion under Section 40 of the Police Services Act to accept the disbandment if that case were to go. Like if they, I was a little bit frustrated in the fact that in any of the conversations we've had, the Police Services Board was not asked to provide that motion because it's council that determines that, not us. I'm wondering if that conversation has to do with solidifying the Police Services Board is on board with the actual disbandment and not just providing these letters in cognizant of what's going on. So we have been asked, and we can talk about it more, is that the require letter from the chair of the Police Services Board containing a motion passed by the board requesting the disbandment of the Wing and Police Service under Section 40 of the Police Services Act. So I've presented the letter stating that the board is accepting of the disbandment, but it doesn't have a motion of the board in it. So I think what my suspecting is they want this motion as an appendix to the letter that we sent, or that I sent, that basically indicates that the board has moved it and seconded it and established it that they're okay with the disbandment. So we can talk, that's, I did mention to Peter that would be coming, because I don't foresee the board having an issue, but I would leave it up to the board to decide whether that is something that they want to present. Is there any questions with regards to the ask of the OCPC? So if,
When do they need that motion by?
so they're just asking, that they didn't actually say when they needed it by. The police service or the OCPC has actually requested it from the municipality. Obviously Dwayne sent it to me saying, you need to do this. The OCPC is asking for it. And I said, well, we have a meeting. I got the email on the 12th. So basically last week, and I said, well, we're having a meeting next week in a couple of weeks, I thought at the time, and we should be no problem getting that message. So, obviously if we need to make that motion, we need to have, it would be something done today and written up.
I think they might be asking that as a result of the West Nipissing lawsuit that was filed after, saying that the police service board was not included in the process.
Right.
So they now want to ensure that the police service board is included.
So basically, they did provide us, where they provided me with the section 40 of the, stating exactly what section 40 of the Police Services Act says. So I can forward that on to the board members, or I can read it right now, and then we can talk about whether we want to make that motion or not. So, so if that pleases the board, I would just make note of what section 40 says, and then we'll talk about it. So section 40 just basically states a board may terminate the employment of a member of the police force for the purposes of abolishing the police force or reducing its size if the commission consents, or if abolishment is reduction does not contravene this act. Criteria for commission's consent. The commission shall consent to the termination of employment of a member of the police force under section 1 only if A, the member of the board have made an agreement dealing with severance pay, agreed to subject the matter to arbitration, or B, the commission has made an order under subsection 3. So under subsection 3, if the member and the board do not make an agreement detailing dealing with severance pay and do not agree to submit the matter to arbitration, the commission of it is of the opinion that it would be appropriate to permit the abolishment of the police force or the reduction of its size, may order the member and the board to submit the matter to arbitration and may give any necessary direction to that connection. So in subsection 4, which it says section 124 applies to an arbitration referred to the section basically stating about our arbitration. So ultimately, I think what this is asking us to do is the same thing as what the letter indicated, is that we have an agreement in place that indicates all severances, discussion, and termination pay, and all that stuff, that legalese with regards to employment law, but also in the fact that it also says that we aren't in a position that we're not in agreement. And if we were, that they could force us to go to arbitration to make it so that we would have a binding agreement. So that's, I think, the gist of what I'm hearing and what subsection or section 40 of the Police Services Act states. I don't think the letter I submitted that this board has seen, I don't think contravenes what they've asked of us. So if the board is willing to create that motion, then I will, if the motion is, then I will contain the letter stating the motion and what the motion is. So do I have a board member that's willing to move that motion? That the chair of the Police Services Board provide the OCPC a letter containing a motion passed by the board requesting the disbandment of the Wing of Police Service under section 40 of the Police Services Act.
Just to clarify, so And then that sets in motion the next steps, or will the next steps happen even if we don't send that motion?
I suspect if the OCPC is asking for this motion, they will not move forward until they get it. I'm assuming there's somebody at OCPC's checking all the boxes that they have to make sure that they've got all their T's and I's crossed. Because of this, like the chief said, Nipissing and Espanola and a whole bunch of ones that have gone south on them, that they don't want to have that issue going forward. I'm guessing. I don't know. They've just asked for it. So if we chose not to, I guess the argument is, if they come back and say, well, you need to, or it doesn't move forward, then we have to have a special meeting. Thoughts?
So the letter you sent, is it the one that's attached here?
So the letter that I had sent originally was back when we submitted the information to the municipality stating exactly what Section 40 says. But we didn't have a motion from the board that indicated that we accepted the disbandment under Section 40. It just stated that the board was accepting of me sending the letter to the municipality to allow it to be included in the brief. That's what we sent a month or two ago. But it did not incorporate a motion of the board that indicated that. So I'm suspecting that's what's. But in all honesty, the information the OPP provided us that said what you needed to provide did not say in that information that you had to provide a motion of the board. It said that because it's the municipality that indicates whether they want the service or not the board. So is there anything in Section 40 that board members are concerned about that?
Are we requesting the disbandment, or are we agreeing to the municipal decision to disband?
So basically the request has been asked, but they're requesting that the disbandment of the Wingman Police Service be under Section 40. Mm-hmm. So we are requesting, based on that conversation, we are requesting, as well as the municipality is requesting, that it's be disbanded. So all stakeholders involved are requesting that it be disbanded.
See, I can see if the municipality has to go to the OCPC to ask for disbandment, and that doesn't come from us, that we agree to it. But what right have we to request it? That's where I'm kind of hung up.
Well, the issue is that
oh, I get their issue.
The municipality technically is not the employer to these members. So the association technically is the employer of those associated members. Police force is the police services board.
But they're paid by the municipality.
But we through the chief dictate whether they are employed or they are not. So nobody here at municipal council or municipal staff can request anything to do with the police service.
Right,
So the conversation is what I'm hearing, under section 40, it's saying the board may terminate the employment of a member of the police force for the purposes of abolishing the police force for reducing its size if the commission consents. So the municipality can request the commission to do it. The commission has to consent, but the board has to agree to terminate. If we don't, this is where Espanola and Nipissing,
Espinola's done, it's
or
Nipissing.
Nipissing is the one,
West Nipissing.
Westwood Nipissing is, they've got themselves into a legal battle because the police services board is saying at Lake Nipissing, we weren't involved, therefore we don't want to terminate.
Okay.
And ultimately, I think this board has been in these meetings enough that we really don't have a choice. Like, like from a ratepayer in Wingham, I don't think we have a choice based on what the real needs are of the force and what has been communicated to council, and they are now of the understanding that, you know, we may not be able to afford what we have, and here's a better option that we can do.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify if we were requesting or whether we were agreeing. I'm okay with it, and then I would put the motion forward.
Okay. So Joan moves the motion that I will prepare a letter containing a motion passed by this board requesting and agreeing to the disbandment of the Wingham Police Service under Section 40 of the Police Services Act. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Second.
Kathy seconds it. Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, so we'll move on to 7.1, which is the department report, Chief.
Okay, month September, we responded to 144 calls. 7 of those calls were to assist the OPP outside of Wingham. During the same period in 2017, we had 140, so only 4 calls difference, not a heck of a lot. I attached the crime statistics for September, not May, which is in my written report. It was September that crime stats are attached. Firearms training is complete for the transition to the 9mm Glock. They were purchased following council's decision to keep the Wingham Police Service back in March, and that will be the firearm that they're using when they transition to the OPP. I'm going to be attending Saugeen Shores tomorrow and Thursday for my use of force training, because I'm the only one that expires this quarter. Should the disbandment be delayed, then all of our officers will have to undergo training in April next year. Everyone will be due. And I attended the Small to Mid-Sized Chiefs Conference in Gananoque the 2nd to the 4th of October. Also need to let you know that I'm going to be out of the country from the 19th to the 26th of October on vacation. Sergeant Foxton is designated as my replacement during that time frame. And should the need arise, he can be contacted. And he also will have the authority to contact the SIU or the OIPRD as the need is required. And I do have something in camera with regard to a legal matter that I need to discuss before.
Okay. Is there any questions to the chief regarding his report? Verbal and written. Not seeing any. Do I have a motion to accept the report? Yolanda moves that. Joan seconds it. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll move on to the bills and accounts. So is there any question with regards to the bills and accounts as they're presented there? They are from June the 15th up until October 12th. Okay, so Yolanda will move them. Do I have a seconder? Kathy seconds them. Before I ask I do have a question, Chief. When I look at the year to date for the annual budget compared to a couple of the accounts, one is quite striking to me is the fuel costs. If we looked at October, well, that would mean we only have 2 months left. It appears that we're about $10,000 low on fuel. Seems odd to me.
That would be extremely odd.
We had 20,000 in the budget, it says, and we've only used about 11. So I'm just a little bit based on what I see there. So that might be something we. The physical payments look fine, but it's just the fact that we have May, June, July.
Also, we have to remember that when budget was drafted, gas was running at 130, 140 a liter.
Now it's now 119.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's some of the savings, but the vehicles are a little better on gas, then we're not traveling out of town as much. Traveling out to Goderich, it's limited to once a week as best we can.
And it would only be till the end of September, right?
So that the bill on October the 5th, 12th would be September bill.
Yeah.
But still, October, November, December, you're not going to spend 10 grand.
No.
Especially when the last
It should
3
be
months has been $1,200.
Yeah, it would be about almost 4.5.
Yeah, because even $1,200 a month times 12 is $1,440, which looks like it's going to be. So that would be about 5 grand. That would be. Did this budget? Let me ask the question again. Did this budget include additional? It did have the time for extra officers.
That's true.
So therefore, those variable expenses are going to be higher in the budget than what we would realize. So that now makes a little more sense to me. If the motion's still moving, the hamster's still moving on there. So some of these costs, we are going to see some relative savings to our budget.
Yes.
And this kind of moves in to 8.2, some of the discussion I want to have. But there is a motion on the table. Yolanda's moved the bills and accounts, and it's been seconded by Kathy, I believe. So I will ask for the vote. All those in favor of those? Carried. So 8.2, So this is a discussion about transferring reserves, from reserves to offset the cost of the police legal fees. And these two legal fees are relating to Constable Leslie as well as Sergeant Foxton with regards to SIU legal, with regards to the incident, obviously outside of town for Constable Leslie, as well as the one in Whitechurch for Sergeant Foxton. So obviously these are two items that we can't control. We don't know when these issues are going to happen. The question to the board is the board wanting to transfer money from our reserves to cover off the extra cost with regards to that? I guess the question has been raised by the municipality and the chief that says, well, we're going to be over budget in that area. Should we do it? My concern, my question now is, based on what we know from the budget perspective and how the budget was laid out and what savings we're seeing in other areas of the budget, is it necessary to transfer those items out of a line item? So I guess it's a conversation to the board. The reserve is there, so it's not as if it's not there. We put away $5,000 a year for legal, for instances exactly like this when we have extra legal costs associated to this. But I guess my question is that if the overall budget is going to be on or lower, is it necessary? Donna would be the one to tell me whether it's actually necessary, from a treasurer perspective. But I've asked the question before, does it matter if one's over and one's under? If the budget is the budget, are we okay? So I would take information from the board about that, if with their thoughts. Chief, if you have some thoughts?
I just know that the Treasury Department was considering any overage in our budget would simply be rolled over into severance packages. So there really won't be any savings one way. Like, the money's going to be spent next year one way or the other, whether it be from the reserves or from the leftover from this budget that's transferred to reserve. So I don't think it makes a difference whether we go over or stay the same. The bill had to be paid. So,
I don't think it I think the intention was that, the board, and that's why those actual payments have not been approved by council yet to pay, because I said this board hasn't seen, well, we've seen them, but we haven't seen them in the bills of accounts until now. So I said it didn't make much sense for council to accept it to pay them when the board hasn't seen them yet, and we haven't made a decision on whether we want to take money out of reserves to cover it. They're going to get paid. Like, it's not as if they're not going to get paid. It's just the fact that, do we want to cover it with the reserve money now, or do we want to cover it with the budget that we have today? And at the end of the day, the surplus or whatever is going to get rolled into the reserve, and it's going to go to the one-time cost associated with the transition, if and when the transition happens to the OPP.
Oh, we do have a special reserve just set up for legal, right?
yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
There's, I think Donna said 52,000.
Yeah. I don't know specifically what the reserve, how much is in there, but we do set away. There's two reserves that the Police Services Board puts away, is one for capital and one for legal.
Would it not make sense to use our legal fees for legal fees? If we have a reserve for legal fees?
Yeah, I'm just giving the discussion with the board is that, if we didn't, the end result's going to be the same. So yeah, I'm more than happy to accept the board's motion if they want to. The recommended motion was to have council authorize the transfer of the necessary funds from the legal reserve to cover the legal expenses not covered in the 2018 budget. Kathy moves those and Yolanda seconds them. All those in favor? Carried. So Andy will just make note of that for council for the next, that they'll just get that motion, that recommendation, so that can happen by the next council meeting. Okay, correspondence. So there's some correspondence from the OAPSB. So basically a special training session on November 7th. I suspect there's probably, with knowing what I realized of 4 years ago, there's probably going to be more correspondence come out from the ministry as well as the police services boards, our associations, with regards to training for new board members, if there is ones, new councils as well, to understand what their rights and what their abilities to do with regards to boards and stuff. So I would keep an eye out for those coming up. So that's all the correspondence that's been mentioned. If there's a motion by the board to order, read, and file those correspondence, Yolanda moves that, and Joan seconds them. All those in favor? Carried. So under new business, so under 11.1, that's the letter that so the letter that's attached in is the letter to the OCPC regards to the disbandment. What the motion of that under the Police Services Act, the Section 40, we've dealt with that already, so that can so we'll move on with that because we dealt with that under the business arising. So at this time, under 11.2, I would we actually have a good thing to recognize tonight. We can recognize Chief Poole. We have the award for the Governor General of Canada, the Police Exemplary Service Medal. It is awarded to Timothy Poole in recognition of 20 years of loyal and exemplary service to the public safety in Canada. So this is similar to the award that Sergeant Foxton got. I believe it was last year or the year before that. I think it was the year before that when we did that at the board meeting. So so I will ask Chief Poole to come up and we'll present him with, I can come to him.
Just getting older.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Wait, we need a picture.
You want to pick? Holy media.
Well, should go to the media. What do you think?
Probably should.
It's important. So what is, I just close that door.
Close that door. How do we do it right here?
Yeah.
Right in front of the
Flags.
flags. There we go.
Wow, so official looking. Maybe you should smile when it's wrong.
I'm supposed to be serious.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, Chief.
They give you any medal with that?
They didn't. At this point, I haven't seen one.
In the mail.
I haven't seen one.
They normally come together.
So I haven't seen one. So we'll, if that's something, we will follow up. We'll follow up with them to see if it if it got lost in Canada Post. So I do want to thank you very much, Chief, for definitely your years of service, and definitely your feedback to this board has been definitely a help based on the operation, but also the candidness of some of the conversations we have. So I do thank you as the chair and on behalf of the board. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So is there any under 12 board members' inquiries? Is there any member that would like to make an inquiry regards to anything that regards to the service or what's coming up? Okay, I will ask the question to the chief based on what has what has been the media discussion for the last week and a half is preparations for legalization of cannabis. Obviously, there has been very little feedback about what at least been coming down as to what the bills are. So what has been the direction from the chiefs, or what do you think that's going to, or how is it going to impact our service?
The OACP is putting together a proposed or a draft policy that police services can use with regard to that. We've not received a copy of it yet. I did put together a interim policy to hold us over until that does come down to us with regard to our officers' personal use, which they, as of 4 hours from now, 4.5 hours from now, they are permitted to use cannabis.
Yes.
So I have policy in effect to control that. They're not allowed to show up for duty unfit, which has always been same as alcohol, and they won't be allowed to use for a time period prior to coming on duty. As for the impaired driving, everyone's concerned about drug impaired driving. That has always been against the law for as long as I've been in policing. The officers, all of our officers, have been trained as a standard field sobriety test officer, so they can all do the initial sobriety tests to determine the sobriety of an officer or of a person that's been driving. Sorry, all but one have that. And then that officer makes a decision to go to a drug recognition expert. Huron County OPP has one drug recognition expert. Wellington County has one or two. West Grey Police Service has two. Hanover had one, but he's moved on. And Saugeen Shores has one. So we rely on them for any actual examinations following the standard field sobriety test. We would rely on that. Today, we received documentation on charge wordings under the new federal and provincial cannabis acts. So the officers have been briefed on that and are ready to go at midnight.
I guess the laws around smoking in public places still fall under the Bylaw Act or the Municipal or
Until the
Smoke-Free Ontario Act.
Until the municipality comes up with a bylaw on where they are allowed to smoke in the municipality itself, it falls under the Smoke-Free Ontario Act location. So the parks, so many meters of a door, not near a school, things like that. One of the things we're going to be keeping a close eye on, again, it's anyone under the age of 19 is not allowed to possess it still. And that was one of the concerns of the school board, is are we going to enforce that? Well, yes, we are. Yeah. We will be enforcing that.
Generally, we don't just ignore laws.
No. So, yeah, basically anywhere you're allowed to smoke right now, unless the township creates a bylaw to say you can't do it. Anywhere you're allowed to smoke, you're allowed to smoke cannabis.
But don't bring your beer.
Sorry?
I said, but don't bring your beer.
Yeah.
It should be the same as alcohol.
Wouldn't you think?
So,
Like, I don't really want to be at the park and having my kids play next to someone who's smoking it.
technically they can't.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be smoking.
120 meters, you can't be within a park, technically.
Technically.
But
You're also not supposed to stand outside doors and people
But
smoke
those-
outside doors.
and that's the concern that, I think that, that's kind of one of my follow-up questions is, we currently, right now, the police service doesn't do those laws. Those aren't, like, that is to do with Smoke-Free Ontario, which requires another individual to find them. The police service can't do that. Is that correct? They can?
But it does fall under the provincial offenses officer with the health unit that does that. He comes through Wing from time to time, up around the high school, watches for people passing cigarettes from one to another, because you're not allowed to distribute to a person under the age of 18 or under 19. So he comes through and does it on a regular basis. They're not going to be enforcing the Cannabis Act. That's up to the police.
Correct.
So they'll be taking care of that.
What about edibles? 'Cause-
Well,
though, like, how are you gonna monitor that?
that's a good question.
Hey.
It's all around the smoking of cannabis.
But nothing to do with edibles, and a lot of people do edibles.
Well, these are, I think, some of the concerns that, not only does the Wayne Police Service have, but I think Toronto has them.
It's concerns that our association has been putting forward since they announced the legalization of it. And that's why it was delayed initially from 1st of July till October, and we're still not 100% ready. And then none of the police services. But we're going to do the best we can with the resources we have.
Yeah, and to be quite fair, that the federal government hasn't provided a whole lot of direction to the provincial governments. And I'll tell you right now, the $40 million that the provincial government's providing to the municipalities in order to upkeep this, the increase of whatever this is to manage it, is a drop in the bucket to what it's going to actually cost to support and to. I've heard that commonly phrased is that it's that enforcement is not going to be even close to what it's going to cost in order to properly enforce the law that we don't even really know how to enforce at this point. And we're going to do the best we can with the direction we've been given by the provincial government. And I think there's a whole bunch of things that the municipality has to do as well. That hasn't even been brought up yet. So we need to, that's definitely, I think what's going to end up happening is council come December 1st is going to have a lot of things on their plate. Is what basically what I've warranted from this. So that's great, Chief. Thank you for that operational stuff about how we're going to manage that and that's because I think that's important for us to understand that, but it's also important that we are going to be doing something as opposed to nothing, obviously, and we wouldn't be doing that anyway. So, is there any other board member, or is there any other questions? That was more me, so there isn't. Okay, I will. We'll move to 14, which is the in-camera session that has to do with a legal matter. I'll take a motion to move in camera. Joe moves. Elena seconds. All those in favor? Carried.